Ndindi Nyoro breaks with the William Ruto. Can the young MP dismantle Gachagua's grip on Mount Kenya? The political earthquake was analyzed yesterday in a screen TV. What happened when the man who helped build your political empire suddenly walks away? What happened when one of the President William's most trusted young ally began speaking completely different political language? And what happened when the same politician now positioned himself on the opposite side of the political divide? That question surrounding Kiaru MP Ndindi Nyoro. For years, Nyoro was regarded as one of the most closest young politicians to President William Ruto. In 2022, he was one of the energetic campaigner who helped mobilize supporters for William Ruto, particularly across Mount Kenya region. He was young, great, and he was trusted with one of the parliament's most powerful committee. And many believed he was part of the political generation that will inherit the Kenya Kwanza political machines. But something changed. The relationship became strained. Nyoro was removed as the chairperson of the National Assembly Budget and Appropriation Committee. He distanced himself from the administration. He began publicly criticizing the aspect of the government policy. And now, the political question has become even bigger. Is Ndindi Nyoro finally breaking away from William Ruto? That is not the question, but that is the fact. And if he is becoming Gachagua's political territory in Mount Kenya. Let's go back to 2022, from Ruto's blue-eyed boy to a political rebel. President William Ruto was building a political coalition capable of defeating the establishment, and Ndindi Nyoro was right there at the center. The young Kiaru MP, one of the most visible faces of the Kenya Kwanza campaign in central Kenya, he defended William Ruto, he sorted the UDA agenda, he campaigned aggressively for William Ruto, and after Ruto won the presidency, Nyoro's political star appeared to rise even further beyond the sky. He became the chairperson of the powerful Budget and Appropriation Committee. The position placed him at the center of Kenya's national finance conversation. For a young politician, it was a remarkable rise. Men began asking, could Ndindi Nyoro eventually become one of the biggest political leaders in Kenya, in Mount Kenya region? But there came the cracks. The relationship between Nyoro and the William Ruto administration gradually became more complicated. Nyoro began raising concern about the economy, taxation, and the public debt. In 2025, he warned about Kenya's growing debt burden and criticized the government's aggressive tax strategy. His criticism became increasingly difficult to reconcile, while the earlier role as one of the administrator's strongest defender. There came another major development. Nyoro was removed as the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. The president later described the change as part of the parliamentary committee restructuring following the broad-based government arrangement, while Nyoro's removal nevertheless fueled speculation about the state of the relationship. And suddenly, the political question has changed. The finance bill question. Then came the issue that put many political under a microscope, Finance Bill 2024. The bill triggered some of the largest youth-led protests Kenya had witnessed since independence. But there's an important fact that needs to be made clear. Ndindi Nyoro did not vote yes during the second reading of the Finance Bill 2024. However, the bill was ultimately rejected after a massive public opposition was not enacted into law. Therefore, it would be inaccurate to say Ndindi Nyoro voted the Finance Bill 2024, but this role in the parliamentary process still became part of the broader debate over where he stood politically. Then came Gachagua's impeachment. The next major political test was even more dramatic. In October 2024, the National Assembly Parliament debated and impeached the Deputy President Gachagua, and Ndindi Nyoro was not there for the vote. Parliament voting record showed him as absent. He did not vote yes nor no. The absence immediately attracted attention because Nyoro had previously been closely associated with President William Ruto. Rather, Ndindi Nyoro explained that he had opposed the effort to impeach Gachagua and had not indicated he would not participate in the process. But that was very significant because Gachagua and Ruto already had towards one of the biggest political confrontations in Kenya's recent history, and Nyoro chose not to participate in the decisive parliament vote, but Gachagua called him a project. But while Nyoro was distancing himself from William Ruto, he was not automatically impressed by Gachagua. In fact, the position happened. Gachagua repeatedly questioned Nyoro's political intention. He accused him of being part of President William Ruto's strategy to devour Mount Kenya. Gachagua described Nyoro as a possible political project, began used to weaken the region's unity and prevent the former deputy president from consolidating his influence. And this is where the story becomes fascinating, because now we have three political forces: William Samoei Ruto, the current president; Gachagua, the former deputy president; and then Ndindi Nyoro, the Kiharu MP. And all the three have interest in the future of Mount Kenya. The People's Party of Kenya, PPK, became another important piece of the puzzle. The report emerged that Ndindi Nyoro and the Bakasi MP Papo Wino were aiming to take over the People's Party of Kenya, PPK. The move was interpreted by political observers as the possible creation of the new political future ahead of the 2027 general election. At this time, Ndindi Nyoro did not publicly confirm the arrangement, but the development was impossible to ignore. But political parties are not simply officers and logos. In Kenya, they are vehicles of the power. And if Nyoro eventually used PPK as a political vehicle, he could position himself as outside both UDA and the DCP, which are the controlling parties in Mount Kenya. But yesterday, during the media briefing which happened in Nairobi, Ndindi Nyoro openly said that he is joining the PPK political party as this vehicle towards 2027 general election. Now, look at the numbers. The real question is not whether Ndindi Nyoro is popular. The real question is how much of Mount Kenya can be actually commanded. Gachagua has already built a powerful political identity in the region. His Democracy for Citizen Party has been aggressively positioning itself as a vehicle for Mount Kenya political interests. The party's victory in the Olekarau by-election, which garnered more than 35,000 votes against 5,000 for the ruling party, made a political ammunition. There are supporters who argue that the Mount Kenya electorate was beginning to move away from UDA and the victory becoming a warning to the current president William Ruto. But now comes Ndindi Nyoro, a young politician, a former Ruto ally, a man who knows the inner working of the Kenya Kwanza machines, and a political who will potentially speak to voters while tired of both sides of the current political confrontation. Can Ndindi Nyoro break Gachagua's primacy? This is the million-shilling question. Can Ndindi Nyoro actually defeat Gachagua for controlling of the Mount Kenya? The answer is not simple. Gachagua has something Nyoro does not yet possess: a strong regional political identity built around the resistance to William Ruto. Gachagua spent positioning himself as the defender of Mount Kenya's political interests. He has traveled across the region, has criticized the government, he has built the DCP structure, and his political language resonates with the voters who feel the region has been politically sidelined. Nyoro, on the other hand, comes with a different story. He is young, he is experienced inside the government, he understands the political system, he had previously demonstrated the ability to mobilize a large number of the voters, but the experience is also the biggest vulnerability. Critics can ask, if he helped to build Ruto administration, why should Mount Kenya trust you to dismantle it? The question could follow him everywhere. But the Ruto factor is for Mount Kenya. Then there is William Ruto himself. The president remains a powerful political force. He has the advantage of the presidency. He controls the national government. He has extensive political network. He still has supporters across Mount Kenya. He has also publicly described Nyoro as a young politician which he was mentoring. The statement creates another question. Was Nyoro being prepared as Ruto's successor in Mount Kenya? Gachagua certainly believed the possibility was real, but if Nyoro is now moving into opposition territory, the political calculation changed completely. The former student could potentially become the political rival of his former mentor. 2026 financial period absence, and then came another moment that they ignited the public debate. During the financial period 2026, Ndindi Nyoro was absent. Out of 349 members of the National Assembly voted, while many were absent, they did not vote. Only 162 members who voted for the finance period 2026. Nyoro later explained that he had traveled abroad for engagement that could not be postponed. He acknowledged the criticism and said that the parliament needed alternative voices, particularly because the government and opposition leadership had increasingly become working together. But politically, the damage was already done beyond the repair. Many citizens was asking, where was Ndindi Nyoro? The question became particularly powerful because Nyoro had increasingly presented himself as a critical aspect of the government fiscal direction. Listen carefully to Nyoro's recent language. In Parliament in May 2026, he made extraordinary observation. He said Kenya had reached a situation where the government joined the opposition and the opposition joined the government. He complained that the majority and the minority leader were effectively singing the same song, and he called the alternative voice in Parliament. That is not the language of the Ndindi Nyoro in 2022. That's the language of politician positioning himself outside the traditional government versus position in framework. This is where Nyoro faces the biggest challenge. Political invention is not easy. The public remembers. They remember campaign for whom. They remember who defended which government. They remember who stood where during the controversial parliament moment. So, we'll have to do more about criticizing William Ruto. You will have to explain why he changed, why now, why did he support the administration in 2022, what went wrong, what does they believe to change, and the most important, what exactly does he want to build. But there is a battle between Ndindi Nyoro and Gachagua, the battle within the mountain. They could become one of the most fascinating political contests ahead of 2027. Gachagua wants to consolidate Mount Kenya fought around the DCP. Nyoro could potentially build the alternative political field around PPK. Ruto wants to retain influence in the region, and there are politicians waiting the wings. That means Mount Kenya could become a three-way political battlefield. UDA versus DCP, UDA versus DCP versus a new Nyoro-led formation, and if that happens, the region falls and could become fragmented, but fragmentation could also create the opportunity. The politician who managed to unite the different generation, interests, and the counties could emerge as the region's most influential figure. Can Nyoro become the next kingmaker? Perhaps in Nyoro timely strength will not defeat Gachagua outright, it become indispensable. Imagine a scenario where no single politician can command the entire Mount Kenya force. Others his supporters, Gachagua is his peers, Nyoro built his own network. Suddenly, Nyoro became the bridge, the negotiator, the political swing factor, the man both sides needed. That could give unanimous bargaining power in 2027. But there's another possibility. There's also a possibility that it will repeat itself. Kenya political scene young politicians rise dramatically, receive massive media attention, and be presented as the next big thing, only to discover that the popular is easier to generate than false. Nyoro must be able to transform his national profile into actual grassroots machines. He needs a candidate, he needs a structure, he needs a royal political network, he needs resources, and above all, he needs a clear message. So, is Ndindi Nyoro really leaving William Ruto? His recent political trajectory to the southern shore is significantly distancing himself from the administration. He has criticized the government policy. He has spoken about the need for alternative voice. He has been absent during the major political parliamentary fought, he opposed the participation in Gachagua's impeachment process. He has been linked to political parties outside of UDA, but whether it is become a full-fledged presidential or regional political project is a question that only Ndindi himself can ultimately answer. And then become the biggest question: can he defeat Rigathi Gachagua, the former DEO, the former MP Madera, and the former deputy president, for controlling Mount Kenya region? Or Gachagua's supplements grasp the network provided to the powerful control? Will William Ruto recover his influence, or will a new generation of leaders completely rewrite the political map of the mountain? For years, political appear predictable, but not anymore. The region is understood politically alignment. Ruto is fighting to retain the influence. Gachagua is fighting to reclaim the mountain. And then Nyoro is matching one of the most integral pieces of the chessboard. The man who helped William Ruto to claim status could now become one of the political challenges the political system wants help to build. That is the irony of political moves. The person who stands beside you today can become the person standing against you tomorrow. That one of the questions the only fourth of Mount Kenya can answer. Will Ndindi Nyoro become the politician who speaks right with Gachagua's regional primacy? All will history remember him as another politician who was projected to challenge the mountain's political kingmaker, but could not convert the hype into force. The path has not been decided. The lines are still shifting. The political future is still beyond assemble, and the forces are watching. 2027 is no longer a distant political event. The race has already begun. Boniface Yunge, National TV, Kisii County.